The Galactic Concord believed every civilization followed the same path to war. First came diplomats. Then admirals. Only after negotiations failed did the generals arrive. Humanity broke every rule. When Earth accepted the invitation to the Emergency War Council, thousands of alien delegates expected decorated commanders covered in medals and ceremonial armor. The hegemony was advancing across the Orion frontier, consuming entire civilizations with terrifying efficiency. 3 grand alliances had already collapsed. The Concord hoped humanity, still considered a young but surprisingly capable species, might contribute fresh tactics. The chamber doors opened. 4 humans walked inside. No medals. No polished uniforms. No parade sabers. Simple matte black combat uniforms with tiny Earth insignia stitched over their hearts. Their boots were scarred. Their sleeves rolled neatly to their wrists. Every movement was economical, silent, almost mechanical. Several delegates exchanged confused glances. "Where is your military leadership?" whispered a crystalline envoy. The human ambassador answered calmly. "They're here." Laughter rippled through the council. The insectoid General Zarthek clicked his mandibles. "Those are infantry." "Correct. We requested strategists." "You did. Then where are they?" The ambassador looked toward the 4 soldiers. "They don't need maps." The laughter grew louder. The soldiers never reacted. One casually observed the exits. Another studied the ventilation system. The third watched reflections in polished floors. The last never blinked. Council analysts quietly noted something unsettling. None of them behaved like ceremonial guards. They behaved like predators entering unfamiliar territory. Supreme Commander Velayer activated the battlefield display. The hegemony fleet numbers over 600,000 warships. Massive holograms filled the chamber. Entire sectors glowed crimson. Destroyed planets. Dead colonies. Extinct civilizations. Our best admirals failed. He looked directly at the humans. "What strategy does Earth recommend?" One soldier finally spoke. His voice was calm. "Kill their command." Silence. Velayer frowned. "They have millions of officers." "No." The human shook his head. "They have one decision-maker." The hologram shifted. At its center floated the hegemony flagship, an enormous fortress larger than several moons combined. "The sovereign." The human nodded. "Exactly." Several admirals objected immediately. "Impossible. Unreachable. No infiltration has ever succeeded. The flagship never lowers shields." The human listened patiently. Then asked one question. "Have you tried sending people instead of armies?" The chamber fell silent again. Admiral Saris answered. "We sent elite commandos." "Wearing armor?" "Of course." "Supported by drones?" "Naturally." "Tracked by command?" "Yes." The soldier nodded. "That's why they died." More murmurs. General Zarthek folded 4 massive arms. "And what would you do differently?" The soldier smiled. "Breathe." Confusion spread through the chamber. The human continued. "No heavy armor. No command link. No electronic signatures. No fleet. No rescue. Just 4 people." Several delegates believed they had misunderstood the translation. "You intend to assault the most heavily defended object in known space. With 4 soldiers?" The answer came instantly. "No." The soldier's expression never changed. "We're not soldiers." Another pause. The ambassador quietly finished the sentence. They stopped being ordinary soldiers years ago. General Zarthek laughed. What are they then? No one answered. Instead, the chamber lights flickered. Security alarms screamed. Every holographic display went black. Automated defense drones suddenly powered down. Emergency lighting bathed the council chamber in deep crimson. Panicked guards rushed toward the exits. Technicians shouted. No intrusion detected. Our systems are offline. The security AI disappeared. Then every screen illuminated simultaneously. A single message appeared across hundreds of displays. We were here. Below it appeared a timestamp. 5 minutes ago. Council security froze. Impossible. Every surveillance recording was replayed. The footage showed the 4 humans entering the chamber exactly as everyone remembered. Nothing unusual. But when technicians examined recordings from 5 minutes earlier, the same 4 humans appeared walking through every restricted level of the station. Command centers. Security vaults. Life support control. Weapons control. Places protected by impossible defenses. They had walked through them unnoticed. Then quietly returned to the entrance before officially arriving. No alarms. No casualties. No witnesses. Only one handwritten note remained inside the station's central AI core. It contained 6 words. You should lock the ceiling vents. The council chamber became deathly silent. General Zarthek slowly looked toward the humans. They're not generals. The Earth ambassador finally smiled. No. They're what we send. When generals have already failed. The council chamber remained silent long after the security footage ended. No one spoke. For the first time in Galactic Concord history, thousands of military leaders looked at 4 ordinary-looking humans with something they had never expected to feel. Fear. Supreme Commander Velayer dismissed the public session and ordered the chamber sealed. Only the highest-ranking officials remained. Every recording device was disabled, every communication channel encrypted. The 4 humans didn't move. They stood as if they had all the time in the galaxy. Velayer folded his hands behind his back. Tell me exactly who you are. The oldest of the humans stepped forward. Major Ethan Cross. The commander frowned. Major? Cross nodded. My rank is mostly administrative. General Zarthek tilted his head. If you're merely a major, who commands your unit? Cross answered without hesitation. No one. Several alien officers exchanged confused looks. What does that mean? It means, Cross said, we're given objectives, not orders. The room grew quiet again. Earth's ambassador finally explained. They belong to the Black Division. One of the Concord historians immediately searched the human military database. Nothing. No records. There aren't supposed to be. Another historian accessed classified archives obtained through centuries of diplomatic exchange. Still nothing. The Black Division simply did not exist. Velayer looked at the ambassador. You're hiding an entire military branch. We're hiding the people we pray we'll never need. The words carried an unsettling weight. Cross walked toward the holographic map of the Hegemony Empire. Millions of red icons filled the display. They think war is won with fleets. He erased hundreds of icons with one swipe. They're wrong. He erased thousands more. War is won when the enemy stops believing they can win. General Zarthek crossed his arms. And 4 humans can accomplish that? Cross looked directly into the alien's 4 glowing eyes. No. A few deaths won't end this war. Then what's your plan? Cross zoomed toward the enormous hegemony flagship, the citadel of sovereigns. The sovereign isn't leading an empire. He's leading a religion. Every officer listened carefully. The hegemony doesn't obey because they're loyal. They obey because they believe their ruler cannot die. The room became still. Cross continued. So we don't destroy an empire. We destroy a myth. 3 days later. Far beyond Concord territory, aboard Earth's stealth carrier Silent Promise, the 4 operators prepared for deployment. No speeches. No patriotic music. No dramatic farewells. Each checked equipment with practiced efficiency. Their gear looked surprisingly simple. Suppressed kinetic rifle. Combat knife. Medical kit. Compact plasma cutter. A small pack containing food, water, and climbing cable. No glowing technology. No experimental weapons. Commander Velayer inspected everything personally. This is all you're taking? Cross nodded. If we need more than this. We've already failed. Velayer stared in disbelief. Our intelligence estimates over 80,000 elite guards aboard the Sovereign's flagship. Cross calmly loaded a magazine. We're not fighting 80,000. We're avoiding 79,996. Velayer blinked. And the last 4? Cross smiled. They'll make poor decisions. Meanwhile. Inside the hegemony capital flagship. Supreme Sovereign Karvek stood before a panoramic window overlooking his vast armada. Thousands of warships drifted in perfect formation. Entire civilizations had surrendered at the mere sight of this fleet. His intelligence minister approached nervously. My sovereign. What is it? Earth has entered the war. Karvek laughed. The newcomers? Yes. How many fleets? The minister hesitated. None. The sovereign turned slowly. No fleets. No, Majesty. No battle groups. No carrier strike forces. Nothing. Karvek's amusement faded. What did they send? The minister swallowed. 4 humans. Silence. Then the bridge erupted with laughter. One admiral nearly fell from his command platform. 4. They must be diplomats. Another officer shook his head. Perhaps assassins. The bridge laughed even harder. Karvek smiled coldly. Good. Capture them alive. I wish to ask Earth why they believe 4 insects can threaten an empire. Elsewhere. A tiny stealth capsule drifted silently through the darkness between stars. No engines. No communications. No detectable emissions. Inside sat 4 humans. No one spoke. Major Cross checked his watch. The timer reached 0. Without warning, the capsule split apart into 4 separate pods. Each vanished in a different direction. Thousands of hegemony sensors scanned space continuously. They detected nothing. Major Cross watched the massive flagship slowly grow larger through his viewport. His heartbeat never changed. He whispered only 4 words into the silent cockpit. Let's kill a legend. The hegemony flagship citadel of sovereigns was the most heavily defended object ever built. It stretched nearly 300 kilometers from bow to stern, protected by layered plasma shields, quantum sensor grids, automated defense satellites, and more than 80,000 elite Imperial guards. Every corridor was monitored. Every airlock required biometric verification. Every ventilation shaft was lined with motion sensors. For centuries, the galaxy had believed one thing. Nothing got inside. That belief lasted exactly 17 minutes after the 4 human pods reached the flagship. Major Ethan Cross drifted silently toward an exhaust port no larger than a cargo crate. The pod had no engine signature, no heat trail, nothing for hegemony sensors to lock onto. At precisely the right moment, the pod dissolved into microscopic fragments, scattering harmlessly into space. Cross floated the remaining distance using compressed air bursts. He reached the exhaust grill. No alarms. No patrols. He smiled faintly. They're watching the doors. Using a simple plasma cutter, he removed 6 bolts without producing enough heat to trigger the sensors. 30 seconds later, he disappeared into the darkness of the ventilation network. Elsewhere aboard the colossal vessel, the other 3 operators entered through maintenance ducts, coolant shafts, and external service hatches that hadn't been opened in decades. No explosions. No gunfire. No heroics. Only silence. On the command bridge, Supreme Sovereign Karvek listened to routine reports. Sector 12 secure. Engineering reports normal output. Outer patrols unchanged. Everything was exactly as it should be. Then one communications officer frowned. My sovereign. What? We've lost camera network 7. Karvek barely looked up. Replace it. The officer hesitated. We already did. And? The replacement is gone. Another officer interrupted. Now network 8 has failed. Within seconds, more reports flooded the bridge. Maintenance drones missing. Sensor relay offline. Internal motion tracker malfunction. Karvek's eyes narrowed. Run a full diagnostic. The artificial intelligence responded instantly. No hostile life forms detected. The bridge relaxed. It was probably another technical failure. None of them noticed that the AI had answered in a slightly different voice. Deep inside the ship, Specialist Lena Ortiz removed a tiny data spike from the Central Security Core. The original AI wasn't destroyed. It was asleep. A human infiltration program now quietly answered every security request, perfectly mimicking the original system. Ortiz whispered into her throat mic. Ghost online. Cross's voice answered. Good. Phase 2. Across the flagship, strange events began occurring. Security teams responded to alarms that vanished before they arrived. Doors locked for no reason. Elevators skipped entire decks. Patrol routes were mysteriously rerouted. Entire companies of guards unknowingly chased phantom intruders created by the human program. The 4 operators moved freely through corridors that should have been impossible to access. Not because they were invisible. Because the ship itself was helping them. Supreme Sovereign Karvek finally stood from his throne. This is no malfunction. He pointed toward the tactical display. Seal every deck. Activate Omega security. Massive blast doors slammed shut across hundreds of corridors. Thousands of elite guards mobilized within seconds. Combat drones filled the air. No living creature could escape now. Or so they believed. Major Cross calmly looked at the closing blast door ahead of him. He didn't stop. Instead, he climbed into the maintenance space above the corridor ceiling and crawled over the obstacle while dozens of soldiers sprinted beneath him. One young guard paused. He thought he heard breathing above. He looked up. Nothing. Cross remained perfectly still, pressed against the shadows. The guard shrugged and continued running. Only after the footsteps disappeared did Cross move again. Meanwhile, Sergeant Mason Cole reached the armory level. He wasn't there to steal weapons. He quietly removed firing pins from dozens of heavy plasma rifles before returning them to their racks. No one noticed. Corporal Aisha Rahman reached the emergency reactor controls. She planted no explosives. Instead, she disabled the automatic lockdown protocols with 3 lines of code. Every action seemed insignificant. Individually harmless. Together. Catastrophic. Hours later, the bridge received another disturbing report. My sovereign. What now? Security teams have searched 62 decks. And they've found nothing. Karvek slammed a fist onto his command console. For humans cannot simply disappear inside my ship. At that exact moment, every screen on the bridge flickered. For only 2 seconds. Long enough for a single message to appear. You are looking for US. We are looking for you. The message vanished. Bridge officers froze. Karvek slowly looked around his command center for the first time. Not with confidence. With suspicion. For the first time in decades, the ruler of the hegemony realized an impossible truth. The hunters had become the hunted. And somewhere aboard the greatest warship ever built. For humans were getting closer, Supreme Sovereign Karvek had conquered 23 civilizations. He had broken planetary defenses, annihilated armadas, and executed kings before their own people. Across the galaxy, his name inspired absolute obedience. Yet now, surrounded by 80,000 elite guards aboard the safest vessel ever constructed, he could not silence one unsettling thought. They're already here. The citadel of sovereigns transformed into a fortress under siege. Every corridor was sealed by blast doors. Combat drones hovered through maintenance tunnels. Thermal scanners swept every compartment. Every guard was ordered to fire on sight. The irony was almost cruel. The tighter the security became, the easier it was for the humans to predict it. Major Ethan Cross studied the live security feed on a stolen datapad. They're following doctrine, he whispered. Sergeant Mason Cole smirked. People who never change are easy to trap. Cross nodded. Exactly. Every security team moved according to regulations. Every patrol followed a schedule. Every response force took the shortest route. The hegemony had built the perfect military machine. It was also perfectly predictable. Corporal Aisha Rahman reached the ship's gravity control junction. Instead of destroying it, she adjusted the artificial gravity by only 3%. Nothing dramatic happened. No alarm sounded. But soldiers carrying heavy armor suddenly found themselves just slightly off balance. Combat drones began drifting a fraction of a second too slowly during sharp turns. Precision weapons lost their perfect calibration. Tiny errors. Barely noticeable. Yet they accumulated across the entire flagship. Elsewhere, Specialist Lena Ortiz entered the communications nexus. She transmitted exactly one encrypted signal toward Earth. 3 words. Package almost ready. No explanation. No coordinates. Earth didn't need them. The Black Division never reported progress unless success was nearly guaranteed. On the bridge, Karvek's patience finally shattered. I've had enough. He pointed toward his senior commanders. Deploy the Crimson Guard. Silence swept the room. Even the admirals stiffened. The Crimson Guard were legends. 200 genetically enhanced warriors. Each one had survived battles that entire armies had lost. If anyone could eliminate the infiltrators, it was them. Within minutes, crimson armored soldiers spread throughout the flagship. Unlike ordinary guards, they didn't rely solely on scanners. They hunted by instinct. For the first time since boarding the ship, the humans faced opponents worthy of their attention. Major Cross turned a corner and stopped. Ahead, 6 Crimson Guards advanced without speaking. Their commander knelt beside a ventilation shaft. He passed through here, the alien murmured. Cross smiled faintly. They're good. He tapped his throat mic. Change of plan. No further explanation was needed. The 4 operators split up. The first Crimson Squad found Sergeant Cole inside an abandoned maintenance bay. There. Plasma fire erupted instantly. Cole didn't return fire. He sprinted deeper into the bay, disappearing between towering reactor conduits. The guards charged after him. Exactly as he expected. Seconds later, emergency bulkheads slammed shut behind them. The doors weren't locked. They had simply been programmed to respond to an imaginary coolant leak created by Ortiz's hacked AI. The Crimson Squad was trapped. Not dead. Just removed from the hunt. Another squad cornered Ramon near the gravity core. She tossed a smoke canister. The aliens laughed. Their helmets could see through smoke. Then the gravity shifted. Only 3%. Enough to throw their footing off for a heartbeat. Ramon was already gone. The squad fired wildly into empty corridors. Meanwhile, Major Cross reached the highest security level aboard the flagship. Only one obstacle remained. The Sovereign's personal bodyguard. Commander Vargos. Nearly 3 meters tall. Clad in black combat armor. A veteran of more than 400 battles. He blocked the final corridor with an enormous plasma halberd. So, Vargos growled. The ghost finally appears. Cross calmly removed his rifle from his shoulder. Then, to the commander's surprise, he leaned it against the wall. No gun. Cross shook his head. Too loud. Vargos roared and charged. The massive halberd smashed through the steel floor where Cross had stood a fraction of a second earlier. Cross moved with impossible precision. No wasted motion. No panic. Only timing. Every strike from Vargos carried enough force to split armored vehicles. Every dodge from Cross missed by centimeters. Watching through security cameras, bridge officers stared in disbelief. The human wasn't stronger. He wasn't faster. He simply refused to make mistakes. After 30 seconds, Vargos was breathing heavily. Cross wasn't. The commander swung one final desperate strike. Cross stepped inside the weapon's reach. A single knife flashed. The halberd clattered across the floor. Vargos dropped to one knee, clutching a bleeding shoulder. Cross placed the blade against the commander's throat. I don't enjoy killing. He looked directly into Vargos's eyes. But I will, if you make me. Cross struck the alien unconscious with the hilt instead. He left him alive. Then he turned toward the final blast door. Beyond it, Supreme Sovereign Karvek waited. The hunt was over. The execution was about to begin. The final blast door slid open with a low metallic rumble. Beyond it lay the Sovereign Chamber, a circular command hall surrounded by towering windows that overlooked the hegemony's endless fleet. Hundreds of warships drifted in perfect formation, waiting for orders from the Empire's supreme ruler. Supreme Sovereign Karvek stood beside his command throne. He wasn't alone. Dozens of elite guards formed a defensive ring around him, their weapons trained on the lone human who stepped through the doorway. Major Ethan Cross. Calm. Unhurried. Hands visible. No rifle. No fear. Karvek smiled coldly. So, the legend reaches my throne. Cross glanced around the room. Nice ship. The Sovereign laughed. You've come alone. Cross shook his head. No. At that exact moment, every light inside the chamber dimmed. The guards instinctively looked upward. Bad mistake. The ceiling panels burst open. Sergeant Mason Cole dropped behind the left flank. Corporal Aisha Rahman emerged from a maintenance hatch on the right. Specialist Lena Ortiz stepped from a concealed service corridor behind the throne. 4 humans. 4 angles. 4 impossible infiltrations. The guards spun in confusion, unable to decide where to aim. Cross spoke first. "Drop your weapons." No one moved. Karvek sneered. "You think 4 killers can overthrow an empire?" Cross answered quietly. "No. We're here to give your empire a choice." The sovereign raised one clawed hand. "Kill them." The guards opened fire. But nothing happened. Click. 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 Dozens of plasma rifles failed to discharge. The firing pins Cole had removed hours earlier had finally mattered. The few weapons that still functioned misfired as Ramon's subtle gravity adjustments threw off their targeting systems. Before the guards could react, Ortiz triggered the ship's internal security override. Every blast door in the chamber slammed shut. The guards were trapped with the humans. The fight lasted less than 30 seconds. Cross moved like flowing water, disarming opponents before they could recover. Cole struck with brutal precision, dropping armored soldiers one after another. Ramon used the environment itself, redirecting enemies into each other. Ortiz never stopped moving, using compact stun charges and perfect timing to disable anyone who closed the distance. When the silence returned, dozens of elite guards lay unconscious across the polished floor. Not one human had suffered more than a scratch. Karvek stood alone. For the first time in decades. He looked afraid. "You've won this battle," Karvek growled. "But my fleet still numbers in the hundreds of thousands." Cross smiled. "Look outside." The Sovereign turned toward the massive observation window. Every hegemony warship had powered down its weapons. Formation lights blinked in synchronized patterns. Confusion spread across the bridge crews. No one understood why. Then every communication channel in the fleet activated simultaneously. Not with the Sovereign's voice. With Earth's. Ortiz had quietly seized the flagship's communications network hours earlier. Cross's voice echoed through millions of speakers across the Armada. To every captain in the hegemony fleet. Your ruler promised you he was untouchable. He's not. He promised no enemy could reach him. We already did. Ask yourselves a question. If 4 humans can stand inside his throne room, what else has Earth already reached? Silence followed. Across thousands of bridges, officers looked at one another. For the first time in generations. The myth of the immortal sovereign cracked. Ships began breaking formation. 1. Then 10. Then hundreds. Entire battle groups disengaged. Captains refused new orders. Some surrendered to the Concord. Others simply fled. The Empire didn't collapse because its fleets were destroyed. It collapsed because its fear disappeared. Hours later, Concord forces entered the Citadel without resistance. Supreme Commander Velair walked into the throne room, staring at the 4 humans standing quietly beside their captive. He looked around at the unconscious guards. No bombardment. No invasion. No fleet engagement. Cross shrugged. You asked us to end the war. Velair looked at Karvek. You captured him with 4 people. Cross corrected him. No. We captured him with one mistake. What mistake? Cross glanced at the defeated ruler. He believed power came from making people fear him. The Major looked out at the retreating hegemony fleet. Real power comes from giving them a reason to stop fighting. Weeks later, historians across the galaxy rewrote the final chapter of the hegemony war. Not because of a decisive space battle. Not because of a superweapon. But because 4 humans wearing ordinary army uniforms walked into the most secure warship in existence. And walked out carrying an empire's greatest weapon. Its ruler. From that day forward, military academies across known space taught one lesson before any discussion of strategy. Earth doesn't always send generals. Sometimes. They send killers in army suits. The end.